Hi everyone, it's Jackie again. Welcome back to J&D Gardens. This is part 3 in our canna series, which is splitting your canna lilies. Now, if you saw the video that Dan did on propagating your canna seeds, then you know when you plant several seeds in the same container, they can grow together. We'll leave a link below to that video. So we're going to show you how to separate them at this early stage. And then we're going to show you how to separate a more mature canna, like this, when it has all different shoots coming up. So we'll show you how it's done. Okay, so a few things we're going to have when we split cannas is, of course, our plant that we're going to split. We have a razor. And we have what I love is the garden staple, very simple tool, and we use it for quite a few things, so we're going to need that. We have a marker, and we have labels and soil. And we're also going to use a trowel. Trowel's not totally necessary, but we're going to use it today. Okay, so let's start with the canna. This is in a 2.5 inch pot, and as you can see, there are a lot of stems here that we absolutely need to break up. This is our Canova rose, and on the bottom of it, you can actually see the roots coming through the bottom, so that's a clear sign that it definitely needs to be up-potted. And this needs to be split. So what we're going to do, take the label out, set it aside, and then just squeeze it a little bit because they're still kind of small, so you don't want to yank on one of the stems to get the whole plant out, and especially since there's going to be roots coming through. Now you could cut those, but with cannas I really don't want to cut them. So squeeze it, put it on its side, and then take the strongest the strongest stem that you can find and gently pull it. See, that came out pretty easy. Okay, now see the root structure on this? It's getting a little root bound. It's not horrible, but I definitely want to get it into bigger pots. So what I do is I loosen up the roots, the bottom of the roots. And see, they're coming apart pretty easy, so that's good. Okay. This will allow the roots to breathe. And they're probably thanking us right now. There we go. Look at that. Very nice. Okay. And then get rid of any leaves that turn a little bit brown or yellow. Just discard it. That's going to go into our compost bin. Now what you can do, now this is going to get messy. It's always going to get messy, so prepare for a little bit of soil to come apart. What you want to do is get the razor and very carefully, it's going to be like surgery. Now with something small like this, you can actually kind of tear it apart. You don't totally need the razor. And I would prefer to do that on bigger plants. You have to use the razor. So what I want to do is I just want to loosen this up a little bit by cutting it. Can you see what I'm doing here? Cut it like that. Don't cut it all the way through. And just tear it apart like that. You want to make sure that your roots are attached to the plant itself. That's key. If you don't have the roots, it's probably not going to make it. So that's one, and that's a bigger one. And then you have several others here. This is a smaller one. Okay, so when this is tight together like this, you are actually going to have to use the knife to split it apart. Okay, again, try to get as many roots as you can and just split it apart. See, we got plenty of roots with this. That should be a safe bet. That came undone, that's fine. That's going to happen too. So that's a smaller one. It's actually not that small, to be honest with you. But it is kind of dainty, whereas this is a little bit thicker. This is going to go in a bigger pot. This is still going to go in a smaller pot, only because it's thinner. The stem is thinner. Okay, so set that aside. And the funny thing is that you can see, now against my black gloves, it's going to be hard to see. You can actually see the seeds. So if you remember from our propagating canna seeds video, we like to put a ton of seeds together, and these are obviously the ones that didn't make it. So 5 out of 10 isn't too bad. Okay, try to get as much dirt off so you can see what you're doing. And these are splitting apart pretty easily because they are small. Okay, so with this one, we got roots and we have like 3 stalks. Now they are small. I would keep those together, and in the future, that's when you split them. You don't want to split them when they're young like this. These are really small. So keep that aside. Now this is a bigger one, so that's okay to go by itself. I am going to have to cut this. Okay, make sure you get some roots with it. See, we got some roots. So that's going to be another bigger plant. And then these 2 are kind of dainty by themselves. I'm going to keep them together, and possibly in the future, when they get bigger, that's when you split them. Right now, I think it's too soon to split them. Okay, so we're going to take our 4-inch pot. We're going to put the bigger plant in that one. And there was already soil in it, so we're just going to put it right in the middle. And we're going to take some extra soil that we had aside. And like I said, you're going to get some soil. You're going to get on your mat or whatever you decide to use, a table. It's all part of it though. You kind of have to do that. Try to keep it as steady in the middle, standing up as best possible. Okay. And then push it down, push the soil down so that it stands up by itself. And if it doesn't do it right away, just put more soil in. You want this to be as sturdy as possible, so you can even use your hands if you want. Sometimes that's even easier. Okay. Push it down. Make sure that that's going to grow up to be nice and strong and sturdy. That's the key. I'm going to put a little bit more soil in here. If some falls out, that's okay. I'd rather this be strong. That's the key. Okay. And that's what you do. It's that simple. So I want to show you sidewise. That's what it looks like. Okay, and that's going to grow up to be a nice thick stalk, and we give you the best chance possible. And then we're going to get into these smaller ones. Okay, this is a 2.5-inch pot, and we already have soil in it. So we're going to take this. Look at that. Look at the roots on that. And that's not a very thick stem, but with these roots, I have a feeling that this is going to be pretty thick when it does grow up. Okay, so like I said, try to move the roots around so they're not all crowded in one area in the pot. Push it down a little bit. Okay, keep it centered, and then just fill with soil. I might actually use a trowel for this, because it's a smaller area I have to get into. And push the dirt around. Push it down as far as you can, because you want this to grow up nice and strong, and it's so dainty right now. The further down in the soil it is, the better off it is. then start pushing it down. Try to keep it straight. See? That's looking good. I do want a little bit more soil though. All right, this is about done. Okay, that looks good to me. And then sideways, see, that's all ready to go. Okay, put that aside. Okay, so now as you can see, that one plant wound up being 5 plants. And that's the beauty of splitting canna plants, excuse me. Okay, so this is the bigger one. Pack down the soil because I'm going to put it on its side so you can see the size of this. This is one of the bigger ones from that one plant. And then pack down this one. Some soil is going to come out, so be prepared for that. But here's the second one. Okay, that's a good size too. And then these were the smaller ones. Okay, that's actually a good size too. And this had two stems, but they were too small to actually split those. You could do it, I wouldn't suggest it, but because you risk damaging the plant itself, and I think it's too young and it might be a little shocking for the plant. And the same thing with this. This was even smaller than the other one. This is the smallest one. Okay, so now that we split them, like I always say, the very important thing you need to do is to label, because now you have 5 plants, the same thing, and you want to make sure they're all labeled. So I'm going to go ahead and label these, and then we're going to move on to the bigger plants. Okay, so this is our bigger Canna Lily, and if you can see the size. Okay, it has thicker stalks, and this is our Cleopatra. We love this plant, it's absolutely beautiful. Okay, so just like the other one, what you do is you loosen up the soil, squeeze the pot, try to have it come out without having to yank on the stem. Okay, there's 3 stems here, so okay, that's not too bad. And then we're actually going to collect some of the soil because we're going to wind up using it again. So what I do is I break up the soil as best possible, and that's all throughout the bottom of the plant. And look at the roots on here. See, some of the roots are going to come off. That's okay. And this one's going to be a little stubborn, I can tell, because the soil is not breaking up as easily as I would like. But that's going to happen. Okay, so what I like to do, and this is time consuming, so I take my garden staple. Well, first of all, let's get all the soil off the mat. We're going to wind up reusing that soil. Okay. Now, some people just cut into it. I don't do that because I don't want to cut into a rhizome and actually damage it. So what I do, this actually looks like this is going to split pretty easy though, but what I want to do is kind of remove the soil that's on the bottom and on the sides. Now this is the time consuming part, but I've done it where I didn't do it and I wound up hurting the plant, so I don't want you guys to do that. So now I'm starting to see the rhizome right there, and try to take as much dirt off as possible so you can see what you're doing. Okay, I'm only going to show you one basically. Let's see. Now by using the garden staple, you're not hurting the plant at all. You're not cutting because it's a very it's a round edge, and it's actually quite gentle. and that's what I prefer to use. See, now by removing that, I see exactly what I'm working with. And I could go a little bit deeper down here. Okay. All right. And it loosens up the soil, and it also loosens up the stem. So you see basically where you're going to be able to cut. Now that's a leaf that came off, that's okay. I can actually see better without that leaf now. And there's going to be a lot of soil on the bottom of it, so try to remove that as well. Okay. And this one actually wants to separate on its own. Now, if you're going to do this without cutting, I didn't even take the razor to it. Make sure you have roots attached. It's right here. If you don't have the roots, you're probably not going to have much of a plant. Okay? Now this has little roots because it is a little plant, but it has roots, and it has quite a few. And if you remove all the dirt, you can see just how much. Now they're not long because it is a young stem. So we're going to put this aside. That's one. Okay, the other one is a little too small, so we're going to keep this together actually. I would like to remove some more dirt though. Okay. I want to see where the roots are. Okay. And now we can put this in the pot, move all the soil aside. And we're using the soil that we already had. And we're going to put this right in the pot. It goes in one of the bigger pots. And then we can actually just fill it this way. Try pushing it down as much as possible. Great. There you go. You have two beautiful Cleopatras right there. So there you go. One becomes two. If you have one good healthy canna, you can split it up into more plants. And before you know it, these pots will have shoots of their own because cannas grow so quickly. They're a plant that keeps on giving, and that's why they're one of my favorite plants. And don't be scared to give it a try. Cannas are very resilient. So you just have to make sure it's the right size. I hope you found this video informative. If you did, please leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. And let us know how your little patient made out. And of course, be sure to hit like and subscribe. So until next time, remember, yes we canna.